Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another of our Discover Wildlife evenings. My name is Ian Lloyd. I'm one of the product managers here at Wildlife Worldwide and the Travelling Naturalist. And this evening, I'm delighted to be joined by Mike Dilger for our Ecuador talk. I'm sure most of you will know Mike already. He's a broadcaster, author, an incredible naturalist, and one of our most popular and experienced tour leaders. And Ecuador is one of his favourite places in the whole world. So we've got lots to hear about tonight. As always, if you'd like to ask questions, please use the Q&A or the chat function to do this. We'll have about 10 minutes at the end of the talk to go through some of these as well with Mike. And also at the end of the talk, you have the opportunity to request a travel plan to hear more about the trip we're going to hear about this evening. So if you're ready, Mike, I'll hand over to you.
Good evening, Ian. Welcome, everybody. Bienvenidos a mi charla sobre el país hermoso de Ecuador. Welcome, everybody, to my talk about the beautiful country of Ecuador. It's great to be back on the Zooms. I haven't done one of these for a while, so really excited to talk about my favourite country outside of the British Isles, of course. It's a country I know very well. For those of you who don't know me, I'm sure lots of my friends who've been with me before know that I've worked a lot and I still work on the One Show. And also for those that I haven't had the pleasure of leading so far, I look forward hopefully to seeing you at some point. So anyway, this is what I used to do a lot. This is what I do a little. I still am on the One Show doing films with my boy. But most of the time now, I'm either writing or tour leading for Wildlife Worldwide. And a very nice time I'm having too. Thank you very much. I basically love wildlife and I like meeting people and I like talking to people about wildlife. I have one of the best jobs on the planet. Anyway, just to kind of take you back, I think probably people that do know me from obviously the One Show or the tour leading. But prior to all my work as a British naturalist, I've spent a lot of time abroad. This is a young version of me, probably about 3 stone lighter than I am now, with a slightly better physique, out in Ecuador. And when I worked there for 2 years, had an absolutely brilliant time working there. I love the country. My Spanish is pretty fluent. I love the people. I love the culture. Biodiversity is one of my favorite words in the entire world. And you talk about biodiversity, Ecuador, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru are probably the three most biodiverse countries, certainly for birds. I mean, look at this. I'm holding 3 snakes. How many snakes are there in Britain? 3 species of snake. Adder, commons, a smooth snake, and grass snake. Here, in 5 minutes, I've managed to find 3 species of snake. Got a boa constrictor on my neck. I've got a rat snake in my left hand and a fer de lance, which is a type of rattlesnake. So if you want biodiversity, if you want lots of different species, then certainly Ecuador is one of the places that you have to contemplate visiting. When I was there, I did my master's thesis. So I've got a BSc in biology, I've got a master's and MSc in ecology. And I first went to Ecuador in 1980. Where are we now? 1980, no, about 1992, when I was working there in my master's thesis. And I did a project on moths in the cloud forest. So I took 2 moth traps. I put one in the cloud forest of Ecuador and one trap in the deforested area, and came to the stone conclusion: if you chop the forest down, you lose lots of species of moths. And that's where my love affair of all things South America started. I was moth trapping by day, moth trapping by night, and bird watching by day. And I've just never really stopped going back to the tropics, and particularly South America. So for those of you who don't know where it is, you've got the massive wedge that is Brazil. Go slightly further west, you've got Peru and Colombia to the north and south, and you've got this wonderful kind of pinky purple colour country called Ecuador, which sits right on the equator, looking out over the Pacific Ocean. And it's a country of contrasts. It's a country of immensely different habitats. So if we look roughly at Ecuador here, so the big brown wedge you've got coming through the middle, That's the Andes mountain chain. It's the backbone of Ecuador that starts in Colombia, runs through Ecuador, Peru, Chile, and Argentina, right down to the Tierra del Fuego. So it's got this big letter M that is the Andes, the Western Cordilleras, the Eastern Cordilleras, and then they've got the Inter-Andean corridor in the middle, which is where the capital Quito sits. So historically, you've got lowland coastal forest to the west, to the Pacific. A lot of that has gone, but there still are some good remnant patches left. And entirely to the east, bordering onto Peru and then onto Brazil, you've got the Amazon rainforest, the western part of the Amazon, the richest part of the Amazon. It is an absolutely astonishing place. And we're mostly concentrating on various sites up and down the Andes before we end up in the Amazon. Roughly speaking, we work west to east on the trip. And my word, we really, really pack it in. So we arrive in Quito, and the first place we go to is at Sachatamia Lodge near Mindo. Now, I talked about those western slopes. So if you imagine, if you look at this map, and the prevailing wind is a westerly wind, an easterly wind moving from the west to the east, you're gathering together all the raindrops, you hit that western slopes, you rise up, you cool and condense. So those cloud forests are where the cloud actually sits in the forest. It's forest at altitude, it's on a slope, and it's probably one of the richest places for biodiversity and endemism in the world. A chap called Norman Myers came up with this theory about biodiversity hotspots. If you want to conserve most of the wildlife on the planet, you have to concentrate on these biodiversity hotspots, which is where all the stuff is and where a lot of the wildlife worldwide trips are as well. And Norman Myers called the cloud forest in West Ecuador the hottest of the hotspots because it's got a lot of species and a lot of species with a very restricted range, what we call endemic. So we go into Quito, go up and over the Western Cordilleras and slide down into the forest near Sachatamia. This is the lodge we'll stay at, really comfortable. I think we stay there 2 nights. We kind of move on quite a bit throughout, and then we kind of settle in the Amazon and just enjoy everything that's Oriente there. So here's that cloud forest you can see there. Often on slopes, the cloud sits in the forest. It's a beautiful, evocative place. And that's where we really go to town on birds. The cloud forests in the west of Ecuador are the world epicenter for hummingbirds. This is a white-necked Jacobin, a male. It's got a little white patch on the back of its head. And this is one of the really common species at Sachatamia and some of the other places. I think we went, I've done the trip for 2 years now, in 24 and 25, and I think we had about 25 species of hummingbird. It is the best fun. Sitting there with una cerveza, a beer, and your binoculars, or ron, a rum, a South American rum, and just sitting there with your book, identifying the hummingbirds. So lots of hummingbirds and hummingbird feeders at Sachatamia. It is mostly birds in the cloud forest. We'll get loads and loads of mammals when we go elsewhere. But also as well, lots of things like agoutis, which is the biggest rodent in the world. Of course, this is one of the smaller rodents called alpaca. And the massive capybara, sorry, I beg your pardon, it is an agouti, and the largest rodent, of course, is the capybara, which is in the Amazon. So this is agoutis. We see lots of them. They're wandering around all the time. Usually they're hunted, but at Sachatamia they're really tame, so you can see them very easily. One of the first things we do is we go and look at a moth light they put out. Now this attracts thousands of moths every night and all manner of other insects. So if you get in the hide at dawn, and this is what we'll do on the very first morning after we've arrived, we'll turn up and see all these birds coming down to take a few insects off the sheet. It is an amazing opportunity for seeing brilliant birds very close and really charismatic birds like this. This is a female masked trogon, and the masked trogons are really common at Sachatamia. When they fly in, they're just stunning. But this is probably one of my favorite South American birds. the broad-billed motmot. They've got this amazing azure tail with two naked bits at the bottom and then two little tennis rackets, and they just sit there with their tail going like a pendulum in an old father's clock. And they've got this beautiful call, which hopefully you should be able to hear now. So there we are, that very first morning, and we're just suddenly getting some of the most charismatic cloud forest birds, like the trogons, like the motmots. We don't just do our birding at Sagittaria. We didn't manage to do this in 24, but in 25 we went. The chap on the left is a chap called Angel Paz. He's very well known. He started a reserve called Angel Paz Nature Reserve, where he was getting, he slowly got birds called ant pitters to come in to feed to feeding stations. So what he did was he put worms out, and eventually, over the space of 2 or 3 years, got these amazing birds to come down. And they are probably the most sought after birds in the whole of the South American rainforest, because they're always in the forest interior. They're really charismatic and they're incredibly shy and difficult to see. So we visit Angel Paz for a morning, but before we look for the giant ant pitter, we look, here we are, Refugio de Paz. On the right hand side is Santiago, our guide. This is the group from 2025. And the first thing we do when we get there really early is look for Gallo de la Peña, which is the Andean cock of the rock. Probably out of the 10,500 species of bird in the world, my favourite one, because I used to guide taking people to see leks. So it's a male, it's a lekking species. The males just look fantastic with their funky orange crest, black and silver wings, yellow legs. And the females are dull, boring and dowdy. But as we all know, it's the females that rule the roost. So what we do is we go to a lek where there are 10 or 15 males in the same ancestral lekking tree. And as soon as a female turns up, which they did last year, they start flapping their wings and going, oh, oh, and all the males are going crazy. The females just looking like this. Whatever. She flies off and the males, just their crest slightly flops and they're a bit disappointed. But then another female turns up and they go for it again. So first and foremost, when we meet Angel, he takes us, or one of his guides takes us to an Andean cock of the rock lek. And then, with a bit of luck, we get a chance to see this. This is El Yumbo, the toucan barbet, one of the most colourful birds in the world. Look at that grey face, black head, red eye, vermilion on the chest, and beautiful colours all around, an olive blue kind of blue bum and a slate grey tail. And this, the male and female look the same, unlike the Andean cock of the rock, where they do an antiphonal duet. So they'll stand next to each other on a branch and they'll start jumping up and down. Start slowly and they get faster and faster. So they go ha 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 ha. And this is the sound of the cloud forest. It's a call that travels for maybe 1 or 2 kilometers, and we should certainly hear El Yumbo, and we should, with a bit of luck, see them as well around the forest around Mindo. So when we get to Angel Paz, we'll go to a cock of the rock lek, we'll listen for the toucan barbet before Angel Paz takes us to a special place and does his little trick. So he does that. He does it for a while and nothing happens. But he says, necesita paciencia. You need patience. And then eventually this bird turns up. It can fly. It's got really long legs, but it likes to walk everywhere on the forest. And this was one of the birds I most wanted to see. I wanted to see this bird for 25 years. And finally, last year, I eventually saw it thanks to Angel Paz. This picture is taken by Christina Gu, who was one of the guests last year. And what an absolutely brilliant picture. So it comes to these worms. It's very shy to start with. It's usually the female that turns up. But when it does, it's almost like that kid with the Everbreck, with he used to eat Ready Breck, and he used to have that little kind of glow all around him. I just had a kind of slightly quasi-religious moment when this bird turned up. It was just absolutely magic. So totally thrilled to see this. But also we get the chance to see a couple of other ant pitters as well. So giant ant pitter is the one we go for, and the star, and then we get a couple of other smaller ant pitters as well. So finally seeing this was absolutely thrilling. Um, it's called hummers and hummingbirds and toucans because the toucans are just wonderful. And before I ever went to South America, the first drink I ever drank in a pub was Guinness. And I can never work out why a stout that's brewed in Ireland on the banks of the Liffey in Dublin use a toucan to advertise their drink. But anyway, the first time I went to Ecuador and I saw a toucan was absolutely thrilling. This is a rare toucan. It's a toucan of the Western Cloud Forest. This is plate-billed mountain toucan, and we saw it really well last year as well at a couple of places. So hopefully we'll get a chance to see a variety of toucans, because you can never have toucans, enough toucans. One can, two can. They're just absolutely wonderful birds. So we'll see a good proportion of the Ecuadorian toucans during this trip. So there we are, Sagittarian Lodge, near the famous site of Mindo. And then from there, we go to probably one of the reserves I know best in the world, Makibakuna, because I used to work there. I spent a year working there as a biologist. And we'll also pop into a site called Alambi afterwards, only pop into Alambi for a very brief period. But Makibakuna is a place that's very, very close to my heart. I've lived there. I've got friends who still work there. I was kind of best man to an Ecuadorian friend who I still speak to all the time, who works there a lot as well. It's just an absolutely brilliant place. It's slightly lower down on the western slopes than Sagittaria, which means in many ways we get a completely different suite of birds there. Here's that cloud forest again, where that moisture is sitting in the canopy. And because you get all that moisture sitting in the canopy, it is the world epicenter for epiphytes, which is plants that live on plants because they want to get to the light. There's lots of moisture courtesy of the clouds, and they use trees as scaffolding to get ahead. So these are the big aeroid lilies that you can see all over the cloud forest here. Beautiful when the sun comes up and you get the light penetrating through into the understory. And that is where you get orchids. Makibakuna has got more species of, 4 times more species of orchid than the entire British Isles. I think the record of orchids is something around about just over 200. It's about 56, 57 in Britain. And most of them are epiphytic, so they don't grow on the ground like all our terrestrial orchids, like common spotted or pyramidal or bee orchid. They all grow up in the canopy or on branches. And sometimes when a branch breaks and it falls down, we get a chance to see these lovely orchids. This is a species of orchid called Masdevallia, which is one of the genera. And we'll certainly get a chance. There's a little orchid garden there to go around and see some of the orchids. So orchids are really well known. This group is perhaps less well known until you kind of recall the one very well known member of its family, which is the pineapple. These are bromeliads, so you've got orchids and bromeliads that have this epiphytic lifestyle. And this is probably one of the most well-known plants in Ecuador. It's called Bromelia de mano, which is the hand bromeliad, and it's the national plant of Ecuador. And I took this on our, I think our first trip when we were there, just a quick iPhone pic. It's just an absolutely stunning plant, and we will see Bromelia de mano when we're there. The lovely thing as well is I always look upon plants as supporting artists, because sometimes when the mammals aren't there or the birds aren't showing, the plants are really, really worth looking at and really worth enjoying as well. This has got a fabulous Spanish name. It's called Lengua de Suegra, which means mother-in-law's tongue. I suppose because it's got a wicked tip on the end. But this has got a plant of huge medicinal importance to the local Ecuadorians. It's used to kind of regulate blood flow. It works with your immune system as well. And it, of course, bear in mind that most of the world's tropical forests are a house for chemicals. Quinine came from a malarial tree, an Ecuadorian tree that treats malaria. Cinchona is the tree. So that's just one example of lots of medicines that come from this amazing tropical rainforest. Um, Birds, I certainly have mentioned it's the world epicenter for orchids, bromeliads, and hummingbirds. Also tanagers as well. We will probably see, certainly we're in Makibakuna and Sagittaria, 10 or 15 different species of tanager. This is paradise tanager. You can't see it's red on its back. This is the male. So it's great fun. You get mixed flocks of tanagers moving through. So we'll sit there at Makibakuna, and all of a sudden a flock will be amongst us, or we'll be in amongst a flock, and they'll move through, and it's great fun. I'm trying to identify as many tanagers as possible. So not all of them as beautiful as that, but a lot of them are very, very colourful. Um, just a brilliant range of birds. So we talked about hummingbirds, we talked about toucans a little bit, and also about tanagers. This is one of the birds we see quite a lot at Makibakuna, and it's a bobby dazzler. This is a red-headed barbet. You get the old world barbets and the new world barbets, but we get the female as well. In many ways, is actually even more beautiful than the male. She's kind of greens and yellows with blue on as well. So we should get a really good opportunity to actually see this bird well. And for those who like taking pictures, certainly hummingbirds and toucans will be lining up, and hopefully you'll get a chance to take a picture of a bird like this as well. Um, talked about toucans. This is a mini toucan, a toucanette. You can't quite see, or you can maybe a little bit see, it's crimson rump. This is a crimson rump toucanette, and it's dinky. So if I cut off its tail and maybe just stuck it in I could just about stick it in a pint pot with its bill and its head sticking out over the top. So some of the big toucans, like the choco toucan or the toco toucan, are probably about 2 foot tall. This one's about kind of 7 or 8 inches. Absolutely wonderful. And we should get a chance to see the crimson rump toucanette and Makibakuna or Sagittaria, and we'll see a very similar species on the eastern side of the Andes. That's where we go to the west and the east. You quite often get species that look a little bit the same, but they're completely different because they're evolutionarily isolated from each other. So on the other side of this, we get a very similar bird, which is actually much rarer, which we saw this year. In 2025. So we'll get a chance to kind of look, see how many toucans and toucanettes we can get. Mostly birds at Makibakuna. I've seen jaguarundi there, maybe 7 or 8 times. There's every chance of seeing jaguarundi. Spectacled bear or Andean bear is also a possibility there, although I have to say it's much more likely at 1 or 2 of the other locations that we're going for. And that's definitely probably the species we most want to see on this trip, the Andean or spectacled bear. The Paddington, not from deepest, darkest Peru, but deepest, darkest Ecuador. Normally we don't go into Bella Vista, which means Spanish for beautiful view, because we go to Sagittaria, near Mindo, and we obviously go to Makibakuna at a different elevation too. But this year we went to, 2025, we went to Bella Vista for a very specific reason. This is obviously me and Santiago, our guide. Now, Santiago is our guide for the entire trip, bar the Amazon, but he'll drop us off at the Amazon and pick us up afterwards. He's probably Ecuador's #1 bear expert, and he got a call saying, Mike, Santiago, get yourselves over to Bella Vista quickly, because obviously the best chance of seeing a spectacled bear is usually in a high Andean paramo, where we will certainly go looking for it. But every now and again they're seen in the cloud forest. They are in the cloud forest in good numbers, but they're just harder to see in forest than they are in the open terrain of the paramo, much, much higher up above the tree line. So we suddenly got this call, and Santiago was like, let's go, go, go. So we went. And this is a picture taken by Christina Gu, one of the guests from last year. We had the most amazing views of spectacled bears, a mother and 2 cubs. It probably is the highlight of my guiding life. It's one of the animals I've most wanted to see. I spent 2 years in Ecuador and never saw a spectacled bear until the first trip I did in 2024. But seeing them on this occasion was absolutely amazing. And I've got a short clip to show you, just to show you how wonderful it was and how flipping close we were to the bears as well. So they were walking down the path towards us. And Santiago, who is a bear expert, knows exactly what he's doing, had to slightly keep the bears at bay.
Cuidado.
Cuidado, take care. Santiago had to be a little. He knows what he's doing. At one point, we had a guest, a lovely lady called Anne last year, and Anne had taken a few pictures of the bears and was standing there looking at the back of her camera. And at one point, I said, "Anne, behind you!" And the bear was maybe about a metre and a half away from her, and she hadn't realised. No guests were harmed by the spectacle bears, I should say, but it was the most thrilling moment, as I've said, of my guiding career. Shortly after that, we pop into a place called Alambi, which is another hummingbird site. It's a site that's really famous. We'll probably only pop in there for a couple of hours, and you just get a chance to fill your boots like you could not believe. And this is the first time I went to Alambi in 2024. I filmed this little video of a couple of guests feeding hummingbirds.
Yeah, this is bird watching. Yeah. Come on then. So I've got, yeah. Look at that, three the same. Three's a crowd. Come on then, and another one. Four's the same.
Any advance on 4?
Oh, wow.
So that was purple-throated woodstar, booted racket-tail, and buff-tail coronet, all in the space of 30 seconds. Absolutely flipping brilliant. So we pop into Alambi, and then we go back through Quito and on to Chacana, near Antisana National Park. So this is where we go much, much higher up. So in Sachatan, we were around 1,800 meters, Maquipacuna with maybe 12 to 1,400 meters. Chacana is much higher. The lodge we stay at, Tambo Condor, is about 3,300, 3,400 meters, and we may well go up to 3.6 or 3.7. But we take it very easy at that altitude. There's no long walks. We're mostly in the vehicle, jumping out, having a look around, and it's the most wonderful reserve. It's managed by the Hokotoko Foundation. The Hokotoko ant pitter, like the giant ant pitter, was a species of Ecuador, a species of ant pitter that was found by Robert Ridgely in the early noughties in southern Ecuador. And it was a new species to science, a really big ant pitter. And with the money they raised, a lot of American and Western money, they managed to start buying up reserves, and that includes Chacana. So on the way, we go past this amazing mountain of Antisana, which I think is 5,753 meters. That and Cayambe are the two mountains that are furthest to the center of the earth than any other mountain on the planet, because of course you get a bulge because the planet Earth is like a slightly squashed satsuma. So even though they're less than 6,000 meters, they're still further, because they're on the equator, they're still further to the center of the Earth than somewhere like Everest or K2 is. So amazing seeing these fabulous snow-capped mountains with their glaciers on. You can see the big glacier down the side of Antisana there. So we drive up there, and this is the Paramo. This is the really high up on the eastern slopes of the really high Andean chain. So we're well above at the tree line here, and we're looking right down into the valley. Tambo Condor, the lodge we stay at, is down at the bottom, and we're coming here to look for two animals: the Andean condor and the Andean or spectacle bear. We go past this huge big cliff face, and we looked down last year and we could just see condors flying below us. It was absolutely brilliant. So these are a couple of shots that I've taken over the last few years of Andean condors with a bit of local music. I hope you could all hear that wonderful music, because we stand on that edge and we have condors flying past us and below us. And for some reason, that piece of music always comes into my head. What a bird. So when we're on the edge, and we don't go too close to the edge for obvious reasons, we also get a chance to see all this wonderful ericaceous vegetation. In many ways, it looks almost like kind of heathland or moorland from home, only we're at about 3,600, 3,700 meters. And this is a plant called chukirawa, which is really common up there. And the other species that we want to look for is this little Bobby Dazzler. This is the Ecuadorian hill star. It's the most high altitude hummingbird in the world. It's confined to Ecuador and a tiny little portion of Colombia. It's virtually an endemic to Ecuador. And it's so cold at night here that this bird is able to slow down its metabolism, so it virtually dies every night. And both times we've come, we've had really, really good views looking around the Chukarawa for the Ecuadorian hill star. What an absolute Bobby Dazzler of a bird. I did show you, obviously, the wonderful footage and Christina Gu's fabulous pictures of the bears. First time we went, this is how we saw it. This is a picture taken through my scope, a digiscope version, but we all saw the bears quite well. They eat these plants, these spiky plants, which are basically ground-dwelling bromeliads called puyas, and they spend a lot of time up in the tree line above. So because it's quite open there, and because Santiago, who's with us, knows this place at the back of his hand, the chances of finding them are very good. And both years so far, we have had spectacled bear and really, really good sightings. So there we are in Chacana. We'll also get a chance to see the biggest hummingbird in the world, the giant hummingbird, which is also at Tambo Condor. And then we drop down, so we're going up one side into the Andean corridor, up path through Quito, up to Chacana, and then we slide down the eastern slopes, working our way gently towards the Amazon. And we stop at a place called Wango Lodge, and also San Isidro. So we'll spend a night in Wango and I think a couple of nights in San Isidro. Wango Lodge is just wonderful. The food there is probably the best we'll have in the entire trip. The hummingbird feeders are just wonderful. You can sit there if you just want to take it easy and just identify hummingbirds. And it's got this, which is one of the sexiest birds in the world. Sword-billed hummingbird, the longest bill to the size of the bird in the natural world. This is not my picture, unfortunately. I wish I had taken it. Absolutely brilliant bird. And when it comes in, it often feeds on the brugmansia, the devil's trumpets, or we call them daturas, which are a South American kind of Andean plant. And when this comes into the feeders or to the datura or brugmansia, and you see it, it's just one of those moments you will never forget. If you never turn away from a sword-bill hummingbird. It's called colibri espada, which means hummingbird with the sword. Wonderful. But obviously, hummingbirds also get a chance to see some fantastic birds you won't see on the western slopes, like turquoise jay. This is a really common bird right around the lodge. And also we'll go to a moth trap area where they put a light out. And we had about 6 or 7 turquoise jays last year. And this is a picture taken by Richard Stringer, who was on the first group. Absolutely fantastic picture by Richard. This is a grey-breasted mountain toucan. So in the west, you've got plate-billed at altitude. On the east, you've got grey-breasted mountain toucan. And they've got this bird now coming to a bunch of grapes. And we managed to see this bird both times we were there. It was the first time I'd seen it in 2024, and it was an old friend in 2025. The mountain tanagers, because we're really quite high up at Wango Lodge, we're maybe about 2,000 meters. So we've considerably dropped off from Chacana, but we're still higher than we were on the western slopes. And that's where you get lots of the mountain tanagers, like this grass green tanager. So we take a walk. The lodge is right by a road, quite a quiet road. There's a river, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then we go on to the cloud forest on the other side and take a walk looking for mountain tanagers like this, and hooded mountain tanager, black-chin mountain tanager. It's just brilliant. If you really like tropical birding and forest birding, then that walk is probably one of my favourite walks on the entire trip. This is Penny and Richard, two good friends of mine who've been away with me a few times, and they're holding hands for a reason. They want to fall into the Papayacta River. So we go down to the Papayacta River, which is right by the lodge at Wangor, and we go there to look for one specific bird. The torrent duck, Pato torrientes. It's just wonderful. They're like dippers. They just dive in and feed on aquatic invertebrates right in the kind of froth of the water where it's churned up the most. And that's actually the same species. So the orange and grey one is the female, the black, white and brown one is the male, and quite often you see them to get together. And I remember last year one of the guests took a picture of both of them in mid-flight, diving into the water, one then the other, like lemmings jumping off a cliff. So this is one bird that if you're keen on your wildlife photography, we really should be able to get some pretty nice pictures of as well, particularly near Wango and the Papayacta River. And moving on to San Isidro, we're slowly driving down to the Amazon. San Isidro is at a much lower level. Once again, beautiful forest. We spend a lot of time in forest on this trip because that is where the biodiversity is. That's where the hummingbirds are. That's where the toucans are. That's hopefully where the bear may be, or maybe slightly above. So a lot of the wildlife, of course, is in tropical forests. So we sit at this is where we have our dinner and our lunch. The food at San Isidro, once again, is superb. And this is one of the species that we'll definitely be looking for. We managed to see it this time. The first time I'd been to San Isidro, and I've been meaning to go for years. And it usually comes into a salt lick at night. And I managed to get a few really rubbish digiscope pictures through my telescope with my phone. But they are enormous. This is a mountain tapir. They are the size of a flipping horse. And San Isidro is really well known for its mountain tapirs coming to the salt lick. So with a bit of luck, we should see the mountain tapir while we're there. And of course, lots more hummingbirds, like a beautiful brown Inca as well. So yeah, well, lots of birds and ant pitters too. So then on to San Isidro, we then go down all the way down. I've actually marked Napo Wildlife Centre, but we go to Puerto Francisco de Orellana, otherwise known as Coca. It's an oil town really, and from there we take a boat to Napo Wildlife Centre. So just above the arrow, you can see the famous Napo River. North of Napo is the Cuyabeno National Park, and south is the Yasuni National Park. And we'll be going to Napo Wildlife Centre in the Yasuni Park. It is one of my favourite places on the planet. It's got amazing birds, and most of you know I love my birds, but the mammals are off the charts as well. And it's got reptiles, amphibians, the invertebrates are wonderful. So we spend more time at Napo than anywhere else. And after the hard yards, or not too hard, of going in the forest and a little bit up and down in a few places, this is easy. Most of the time we're in a canoe or walking in flat forest or sitting on top of a tower watching birds. Napo Wildlife Centre is the perfect end to this amazing trip. That for me is the sexiest picture in the whole talk. That is just the Amazon rainforest looking gorgeous. And so we're right on the western edge, which is the richest part of the Amazon rainforest. And it goes more or less uninterrupted for 3,500 miles, all the way through Peru, Brazil, out to the coastal forest, the Atlantic forest of Brazil. It is the largest forest in the world. It is the lungs of the planet. It is the epicenter of biodiversity. Ed Wilson, the famous biologist, worked out in one tree in Ecuador there were more species of ant on one tree than there are in the entire British Isles. 1 hectare of this rainforest holds more species of tree than there are in Britain as well. And there's a very good saying actually: what's rare is common, and what's common is rare. So common species that dominate are really unusual, and rare species where you'll find one tree here and then walk for 30 days and then find another one similar are really common. So you get each tree you walk up to is a different species. It's incredibly diverse, and it's just you know I think to be honest, when I finally pass off this mortal coil, my wife will have to go to the tower here and just scatter my ashes over this place. It's bloody brilliant. So here we are. This is the way we come in on a fast motorboat, and when we were just about to join the boat, we had the Pink River dolphins last year, which were absolutely amazing. And as soon as we hit Napa Wildlife Centre is in an oxbow lake, and there's a small river that takes you to the oxbow lake. You can see the Napa Wildlife Centre right at the end here. So for about an hour and a half, our guides are kayaking us through these aguas negras, the black waters, and we just see the most amazing wildlife on the way. I think the very first time we went in, we had 5 species of monkey and 2 species of sloth, and we did pretty well the second time as well. So this is where we stay. There's the tower in the centre you can see, and those little kind of thatched lodges or cabins are where we stay. Frequently we had giant river otter right along the base of there, Amazonian kingfishers perch on the railings. It is just a place just to die for. You've got to go to the Amazon before you die. And if you're going to go to the Amazon, go to a place like this, because it's just luxurious. The guides are brilliant. The service is immaculate. And there is so much to see. This is the place. This is the jetty that we'll go to and from when we're kind of going around all the forest and we're looking for wildlife on the water. And in the night, you might even hear the potu. This is a picture I took kind of with the moon behind, and that bird is like half owl, half nightjar, and it goes and you should be able to hear that when you're going to bed at night. Otherwise, you might hear the great potu, which is like a rah, not quite as attractive as the common potu. So hopefully we should hear and possibly see both species of potu while we're there. One bird you certainly will see is these stinky turkeys. They're everywhere. They make this kind of funny noise when you come up to them. And it's a really primitive bird. It's kind of, you can understand looking at this bird why aves, the class of aves, birds, originated from reptiles. These are birds that kind of, rather than flying away to escape, dive into the water and go underneath to get away. And they've actually got hooks on their wings for climbing back up out of the water onto the vegetation. So we will see a lot of hoatzins or stinky turkeys. They're all around the Oxbow Lake when we're staying at Napa Wildlife Centre. I mentioned kingfishers. This is the male Amazonian kingfisher. There are 5 species of kingfisher in Ecuador. On this trip, in 4 days, we last time saw all 5 species. And I think we saw 4 on the very first year. We missed the dwarf Amazonian kingfisher. So we'll certainly see 4, and with a bit of luck, we'll see 5 while we're there. So you'll get a clean sweep of Ecuadorian kingfishers when you're staying, hopefully, at Napo. And seeing these whiz around is just wonderful. And the great thing about being on the boat is it gives you a brilliant opportunity to take really good photographs. The boat's very stable. I will say, be very careful about dropping your glasses. On the very first time I did this, we lost 3 pairs of glasses over the side of the boat. So if you are coming, and I'm not doing it now, have a string around your neck so you don't lose your glasses, because once they drop into the water, they're solid gone. But it's just the most wonderful place to take photographs. It's nice and stable, and quite often a lot of the wildlife shows at the edges, like the monkeys and the sloths and things like the toucans as well. So you get a really great opportunity to take lots of pictures while you're being kayaked or being canoed around. And it's just most delightful. A little bit of breeze, keep the mosquitoes away. There's hardly any mosquitoes there. We barely had a bite when we were there. So it's just a joyous place to be. And when you're looking up, you might see things like brown capuchin. Both years I've been, I've seen brown capuchin really well. And beautiful animals like the squirrel monkey as well. So brown capuchin, squirrel monkey is really common. I think there's about 11 species of monkey. First year, we saw every single one. And I think we missed one last year, which is a bit of a shame because we missed this one. This is the saddlebacked emperor tamarin, which is almost endemic to Napo Jungle Lodge. It's found in northern Yasuni, not north of the Napo River. It's got a tiny distribution, and this is the logo of Napo Wildlife Centre. So if we see this, it's tiny. It's about kind of chunky squirrel size, a grey squirrel in size, and it's a beautifully endemic bird. It's full of personality, often travels around in troops, and hopefully we should see it somewhere close to the lodge. Also get a chance to see perezosos or bagors. Perezoso means sloth, bagor means lazy in Spanish. Two different species. You've got two-toed and you've got your three-toed. And you have to look at the forelimbs. If it's got three toes on its forelimbs, like this one does, it's a three-toed sloth, and the other one has two toes on its forelimbs. And the three-toed almost like has a face almost like a clown as well. So we saw both species really well on both trips while we were there. And I think on the last time we had a two-toed sloth with a baby as well when we went out on a night walk, which is absolutely superb. Lots of time kayaking round. It's just beautiful. It's so peaceful. The waters are really still. And you're not just looking in the forest, of course, for wildlife. You're also looking in the water for things like caiman, black caiman. This one's got a couple of I don't know what it is, flies on its snout or something like that. These are really common right across the water. You can often hear them calling sometimes as well. But the star, I mean, these are supporting artists. The star is this, the giant river otter. It's an absolutely brilliant animal. Sometimes you see an animal you want to see. It's a really charismatic animal and it doesn't do much. It just sits there like a lion or a tiger or an elephant not doing much. But these are just full of personality. They travel around in family groups. They come out loads. They beat up caiman. They catch piranhas. They're brilliant with their babies. They love coming to see us. Need I say any more? This is Tenura brasiliensis, the giant river otter. And both times at Napo Jungle Lodge, there's a resident family around the lake. We saw them brilliantly. Look at this video.
They all are. It's a young one, is it? Beautiful.
Pedro, misión acumplida.
Misión cumplida. Very good.
Yeah.
Excelente, Mariano.
Brilliant.
So we're looking at the front of that's the giant river otters, obviously. We're looking at the front of the boat there. We've got Mariano, who's a local indigenous tribes person, who's a member of the community that live locally. And we've got Pedro, who's a bilingual guide. Mariano's lived in the forest all his life and speaks a little bit of English. Pedro is completely bilingual, so we'll have a bilingual guide with us. You'll also have me, because I speak Spanish. But they just want to please. They want to find as much stuff as possible for us, and they're great fun. I was going to put some slides in of us visiting the local community, but I forgot to do it this afternoon because I was a bit rushed. And there was we had some great fun firing blowpipes, and they cooked local food for us, and we did some local dancing as well. So if you're into into learning about the kind of local Amazonian tribes in Ecuador, then you'll get a chance to fill your boots one of the afternoons. I mean, it's great fun having a go with the blowpipe and eating kind of like grubs as well that the local Ecuadorians eat all the time. So certainly a chance for kind of a little bit of a kind of cultural interface as well as kind of plenty of wildlife too. We'll also, of course, walk in the forest. A lot of the time we will be on the water, but we'll also get a chance to do a few walks while we're in there. Most of the time it is flat as a pancake. The forest is just wonderful. Just getting close up with all the plants is amazing. You get a chance to see all the insects as well. And with a bit of luck, we'll also be looking for birds. We'll certainly be listening out for this bird. This is the musician wren. We heard it on the second year we were there, but we haven't yet to see this bird. I've seen it before in Peru, and we're hoping this year might be the year that we get a chance to see the musician around as well as hear it. And it has one of the world's most beautiful songs. It doesn't fly very much. It just walks around the forest floor singing round its territory, and this is its song. It's just sublime. I give a nightingale a run for its money any day of the week. One of the most exciting things we do, without a shadow of a doubt, is go up on top of the canopy. This is a kapok tree. The kapoks are the big emergent trees. So you've got the Amazon canopy, and quite often the biggest tree, the emergents, are Saber pentandra. This is or a kapok tree. And so this tower has been built around a kapok tree, and we get a chance to go up there for the morning at dawn, see the sun rise, and seeing the birds flying around, seeing the monkeys sitting on tops of the trees is absolutely brilliant. And just when we were there, they were just finishing off the second tower. So there's going to be a new tower in a different location for us to go up in 2026 as well, which is really exciting because this is probably where you see the most birds. I mean, it's good for looking for ant pitters on the ground, but if you want to see lots of birds and some really great mammals, this is where you need to come. So coming up here is probably, for me, that's pretty much the highlight of the whole trip. I just love birding above the canopy of an Amazonian rainforest. So this is the group up there. We're about 30 meters up. It's a very safe little climb up some enclosed stairs. You pop up through a flap, and there you are. And we have our breakfast up here. The guides bring the breakfast, teas, coffees, toast, and loads of lovely fruits, and we're just looking at toucans and parrots, macaws, monkeys, sloths, while having just the best time we possibly can. So you look up, you can see things like swallow-tailed kite, which is one of the really easily identified birds of prey when you're above the cloud forest, and you'll get a chance to see scarlet macaws. We also go to a number of licks, where scarlet macaws will come down, as well as a whole other bunch of parrots too. But scarlet macaws, seeing them fly past, they've got a really harsh call, but they're massive. I mean, from beak to tail, they're probably a metre long. And they've got the scarlet macaw is kind of red, yellow, with a little bit of green and blue on the wing. And it's one of the alternate species that you really have to see there. When we're up there, we get a chance to see lots of howler monkeys as well. This is the red-mantled howler monkey, Aloata seniculus, and these are really common. When we get up in the morning, we will hear they're very territorial. We'll hear the howler monkey troop calling. When we go to bed, we'll probably hear them calling as well. And the call sounds like this. They've got this massive, big throat and they call, which is wonderful. We'll certainly go to a couple of licks while we're there. Sorry, I keep saying licks while we're there, because a lot of them are calls. They need particularly salt, and also there's supposedly clay to kind of counteract the kind of toxins they may have eaten with fruits, but it's mostly for salt. And you can see here some blue-headed Amazons, some mealy parrots, and with a bit of luck, we should get scarlet macaws coming down. So we'll probably see 5 or 6 different species at the licks. We'll go to 2 different ones. We'll go to one on the main river by the Napo, and we'll also go to one where we sit in a hide and hopefully get the scarlet macaws coming down. So that's a really great photographic opportunity as well, getting up close and personal with all these different parrots coming down. Usually in the morning we'll see this, and we'll spend a whole morning going to 2 different licks. They're owned by Yasuni. Obviously, I know I've talked a lot about mammals and birds, but I mean, there is a fantastic supporting artist, a supporting cast of different animals as well, including this wonderful creature, the leafcutter ant, Atta. So wherever you go, you see little trails of these ants carrying bits of leaf back. And it's the most amazing lifestyle. They take those leaves back and they chew them up, and on that they cultivate a fungus, and the only place in the world this fungus grows is in a leafcutter ant's nest. So the fungus grows on the digested plant, and the ants feed on the fungus. It's the most remarkable lifestyle. So you haven't been to Ecuador until you've seen the Amazon. You've seen the leafcutter ants carrying their little leaves up and down trees. Wonderful sight. Also, you get a chance to see some amazing variety of butterflies. This is a Frank Lambert, a very well-known birder called morpho butterflies, the bluest thing in the world. And I think he's absolutely right. It's like tin foil blue. And when they go past, particularly when you're out on the water, you can't believe the butterfly is as big as it is. So seeing the morphos is a real treat. And butterflies like owl butterflies we should see as well. And certainly get a chance to see, for those, herps. My good friend Michelle came with us in the first year and she was mad keen on all the herps. So you get species like Imantodes. But for those that don't like snakes, then usually we'll almost always have plenty of warning, so you can take a step back if necessary. But I love seeing snakes, particularly ones that are venomous. This one's not venomous, this one's harmless. Lives up in a tree. And of course, Amazon rainforest is famed for its poison arrow frogs. This is the Ecuadorian poison arrow frog, genus Amigura. And we saw this certainly the first year. I'm not sure if we saw it the second year, actually. But we'll certainly be looking out for lots of frogs. One thing we did that was absolutely brilliant last year is a night walk. And we saw so much stuff. We saw a coati, we saw a sloth, we saw some amazing Cattidae insects, some huge spiders. So certainly we were doing a walk, a really close walk to the lodge while we're there. And then after Napo, it's going back to Quito. We stay at a place called Garden Lodge outside the centre. There's a birding spot nearby for those that want to go birding. Myself and Anne, one of the guests last year, thought, you know what, we fancy a bit of culture. So we went to have a look around Quito Old Town. This is me and Anne giving thumbs up to an absolutely brilliant trip. That, in essence, is my 2-week Ecuador trip, or Wildlife Worldwide's 2-week Ecuador trip, shoehorned in to the best part of 50 minutes. I will say again, it is my favourite trip I do. I do Indonesia, I do Ecuador, and Indonesia and Madagascar, but I also do lots of trips abroad in Britain, as many of you know. But because my heart is in South America, it will always be my favourite trip. And it will certainly be the most biodiverse trip if you want to get a good list of birds. I think 350 species we managed last year. Flipping brilliant. And lots of mammals too. Any questions?
Thank you, Mike. Wow, what a talk and what a country. That was absolutely fantastic.
Thank you,
Um,
Ian.
yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, he really brought it to life for us, and there's just so many highlights there. So wonderful stuff. Just before we get started on some questions, I'm just going to launch our poll, which will give you the opportunity to request a detailed travel plan for the trip Mike's just gone through. So please do that if you would like that sent to you. Great stuff. So we've just got some questions in, Mike,
Of
already.
course, Ian.
So first one in from Andrew has just asked about wellies. He noticed that the guests were using them on the tower and wanted to ask if they're kind of necessary and do the lodge supply them?
The lodge supply them. They've got every size conceivable. So I thought I'd walk around in my walking boots, but they said, no, stick the wellies on. And it's just easy that way. So we put wellies on the whole time. So we're in and out of boats in our wellies. So you don't take your walking boots for the rest of the trip, Ian, but wellies are provided by Napa Wildlife Centre. You will not need them anywhere else. But Napo, they hand them out. That's one of the first things they do, and then you just hand them back at the end.
Great stuff. Thanks for that, Mike. Um, Another question that's come in, just in relation to altitude. There's obviously quite a variation
Yeah.
across this trip. So someone was a little bit concerned about what the highest altitude is that you reach on that itinerary.
It is quite high. For example, the Amazon is about 50, 60 meters, and we go to about 3,700, 3,800. But it's all very easily managed. I've never had a guest who's had a problem with the altitude there, particularly when we're at quite high altitude. We take it very slowly. We don't, at Chacana, for example, we don't walk far at all. I mean, Quito, for example, is the second highest capital in the world. It's 2,850 meters. So we're not going a whole lot higher than the capital, maybe about 1,000 meters higher. But certainly we take it easy. We're not doing any long walks at all. Most of the time we're in our minibus, and the minibus will drive there, and we will take a short walk to the cliffs, a short walk to some pools that are up at Chacana. So certainly, I think sometimes you need a little bit of kind of acclimatization, but we'll arrive at Quito, and then we'll drop down, and then we'll slowly come up. It is quite cold at night, I have to say that, but usually places like Tambo Condor, that's the only place where we're really high at Tambo Condor, which is about 3,500 meters. There's the duvets are amazing. They've got wonderful warm blankets. The rooms are heated. There's lots of hot toddies you can drink. So it isn't really an issue. But certainly we will be taking it easy when we're at high altitude. So yeah, cold at night and potentially quite high. I mean, we do a short walk when we pass the Papayacta Pass, but we're on a perfectly level road. And if you're kind of running, you'll certainly feel it. But it's quite an interesting experience being at that altitude, but being in a really kind of safe environment. But it's exciting, and for me, and I think for most of the guests that I take away, it will not be an issue at all. Just talk to me, talk to Santiago, take it easy, and I don't think anyone will have any problem.
That's very helpful. Excellent. Thanks, Mike. Great stuff. Another question from Alison, just regards to biting insects, and do you recommend taking anti-malarials for some or part of this trip?
I, in terms of anti-malarials, there is comparatively little malaria in the Amazon, and we're going to really remote locations. I don't actually know what if I'm entirely honest, what the kind of Foreign Office recommend or what Wildlife Worldwide recommend. I will tell you that I don't take them because I've taken anti-malarials for long periods of time, and I don't really want to go back onto them. Very few guests got any bites whatsoever. A little bit of wearing long sleeves is sensible. You've got to wear long trousers. If you're worried, you can kind of soak your clothes in permethrin. A little bit of DEET. You don't have to take ridiculously concentrated stuff. Certainly on the boat, it's no problem. When you're walking the forest, it might be an issue. The only time we've ever had a slight issue with biting insects is chiggers in places like Makibakuna. And there, if you put DEET around your waist, around anywhere where clothes are tight, or not necessarily DEET, but repellent, and certainly around your ankles, you should barely get a bite. I don't think I got a single mosquito bite when I was there the last time. But obviously, it's sensible precautions. But we're not going to the epicenter of malaria at all. So I will defer on the malaria one and say do check. But I think the chances of picking up malaria are incredibly unlikely. I can't think of anyone that I know that's picked up malaria. But yeah, I will check what Foreign Office recommend. Usually you get malaria in kind of busy places, and we're not going to any busy places. We're going off the beaten track where there's a low population centre, places like Napo Jungle Lodge, where I don't think there's any malaria at all around Yasuni because the population centre is too low.
Thank you, Mike. And just to add to that, Alison, there's a very good website called Fit for Travel, which gives you malaria maps of most parts of the world,
Oh,
which
thanks, Ian. Yeah.
will help. And I think although, as Mike has said, it's a very, very low chance in that part of the Amazon. Sort of broadly speaking, I think sort of that lowland part of Ecuador would be classed as malarial, so it might be classed as a high enough risk to recommend taking them, but it would only be for that portion of the trip. So,
But often
but
often they
yeah,
use broad brushstrokes for the whole area, and then you speak to someone like Mariano, who's the local guide, saying we've not had a malarial case in our village for 7 years, 7 or 8 years, and they don't put any repellent on, and they're walking around in t-shirts and shorts. So we can certainly kind of have
exactly.
a more advanced chat, and if people are worried, they can easily talk to me individually, and I can chat to them over the phone if they're
That,
booked on it.
yeah, that's great. Thanks,
More than
Mike.
happy.
Um, Great. And another question, just with regards to what the sort of walking level would be across this trip as well, because I know there's a range of activities when you're at these different locations as well. So for someone that has a slight concern about walking, could you sort of give a bit more info on that?
It's not difficult. I mean, obviously we're going at high altitude, and when we're at high altitude, then we'll take it easy. And particularly in the cloud forest, unlike the Amazon is really straightforward. We're either in the boat or we're walking in absolutely flat forest where kind of altitude is about 3 meters up and then 3 meters down. In the cloud forest, we will be going up a number of paths. But they're not particularly difficult. At Makibakuna, we stay at fairly low level. We stay pretty much around the lodge, walking on trails that are really established. So we don't do much altitude walking there. At Wango and Sachatamia, there's not much walking up at all. So really short walks, slow walks, because we don't see anything if we're speedy anyway. So, for example, I do trips to Madagascar and Indonesia, and this is the easiest of the three in terms of the level of difficulty, the easiest of the three in terms of walking. So obviously taking it easy at altitude, that goes without saying, but the walking is not difficult, Ian, and we'll take it really slowly.
Great. That's really helpful, Mike. And then just one last one, just with regards to the current sort of situation with security across Ecuador at the moment. Do you have any kind of insight you could give on that?
I think, like all cities around the world, I mean, if you go, you know, you have to be careful where you go. That goes without saying. For example, when me and Anne went into Quito, and that's the only time we really go into any city. If you want to go in, I went into the old part of the town I know pretty well. I speak Spanish. We went during the daytime. Any problem that there has been has generally been in the south of the country around Guayaquil. We are a long, long way from Guayaquil. As soon as we're out in the boons, which is the cloud forest and the Amazon and the Paramo, I mean, it's as safe as houses. I've never had a trouble at all. We've never had any issue whatsoever on either of the two trips we've done so far. We've had no one being ill at all, which has been really wonderful. So very little kind of things like issues like diarrhea, and certainly politically. I mean, obviously it's the American dollar. It's been in the news for probably some of the wrong reasons recently, but as far as I'm concerned, it's a very, very safe country to visit. The way that we do it, we will when we're outside the Amazon, we will have Santiago and a driver, probably Eddie, with us the whole time. They're really streetwise. They know the places really well, and as far as I'm concerned, it's not an issue on this trip. We are in the middle of nowhere. We're just hanging out with monkeys.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mike. And another question just come in from
Sure.
Susan, who says her interest is really in seeing the wildlife, birds and mammals, and just wants to sort of check, th this isn't a photography trip, a specific photography trip.
No, not at all. I mean, wildlife worldwide is a beautiful beast that it caters for both types. And I always market my trips as principally wildlife watching trips where I'm happy for people to take photographs. And I say this on every single trip that I go on. I'm principally, I hardly take any photographs. I'm too busy looking at the wildlife and enjoying it. I'm more than happy to accommodate photographers till the cows come home, and I will try and get the photographers in the best place. If you want some advice as to kind of best f-stop or best lens, you're you're probably best going with kind of Nick Garbett or Brett Sharman or Emma or any of the kind of principal photographic guys. My trips are principally wildlife watching, But I love it when guests take photographs. But sometimes if we want to move on, we move on. We won't wait forever to take the ultimate Andean cock of the walk picture. We'll enjoy the lek, and when it's time to move on, we will move on. So absolutely, I can assure Susie that it's principally wildlife watching. I love birders who kind of go, whoa, look, that's great. Look at it first, get a picture of it second. That's the way, for me personally, it should be done. But always happy to accommodate photographers, but principally it's binoculars first and camera second on all
Great
my
stuff.
trips.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I think that's all our questions for this evening. So yeah, I'd
Oh,
just like to yeah, let everyone know that we have a discount code there for this trip if you would like to uh, take the travel plan and sort of respond with that. And just let you know about our next events we've got coming up. So on the 27th of January, we have an event at Winchester Cathedral. So
wow.
all about South Africa. That's with tour leader Helen Bryan and product manager Jordan Fry, telling us all about the wonders of South Africa. And then on the 5th of February, we've got Emma Healy and Brett Charman talking about Costa Rica. So, yeah, thank you all for joining us. And thank you, Mike, for a absolutely fascinating and very inspiring talk.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And I will just say there is it is guaranteed a trip in April this year. And if you do still have some time and you would like to come, we would love to. We could certainly accommodate a couple more people. We could just about squeeze you in because I know Napo Jungle Lodge is filling fast as we speak. And I think it's almost guaranteed for 2027 as well. But irrespective whether you come on this or whether you come on any of our trips, uh, um, I'd look forward to seeing kind of any number of you. And hello to all my friends that I've travelled with before, and also hello to the ones I may well travel with in the future. Thanks very much, and I will see you out there. Thanks so much for hosting in.
wonderful. Thank you, Mike. And thank you, everybody, again for joining us. We hope to see you again at another event and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.